Greetings, my fellow Americans. This is your president speaking, and today is another day in streaming, Taco Tuesday. And let me tell you, folks, it's getting harder and harder to be this chipper walking into these streams because it's every week and every day just seems to be one more atrocity, one more crime against humanity, one more lurch into the dystopian nightmare by this administration, and it just doesn't seem to be slowing down. It actually seems to be speeding up. Escalation left, right, and center, not just at home, but also abroad. So there is definitely a lot to cover today, and unfortunately, that means we are going to be struggling to keep our sanity, right? So with that being said, most of what we're covering today will be ICE related, because unfortunately that is what is dominating the news here in America, is the atrocities occurring in Minneapolis, but of course across the country as well. There have already been several deaths at ICE detention centers in the United States of America since the turn of the new year, and we are almost, I should say, 1 year into this presidency, and there are nearing 40 deaths in ICE detention centers, when prior to that, there were maybe a dozen total across a decade. So we are very rapidly lurching into the death camps era of fascism in the United States. And yes, that is being paid for our tax dollars. So more to come as this continues. It looks like most of our videos are going to be rather short, which is good because the topics are pretty bleak. So, hello, Anna, and let us hop to it.
Well, in the last few hours, we heard from a family who said their 6 children were hospitalized after breathing in chemical irritants when a flashbang went off under their car as they were trying to get home. Ian Russell is here with their story tonight.
Now, I just want to throw out that the flashbang was thrown by ICE agents at this vehicle in Minneapolis in a civilian center with no due process and no justification, right? And they're going to go into more detail about this. But again, it ended up hospitalizing a bunch of children, to include an infant. So not only are we invading ourselves, not only are we terrorizing ourselves, we're also committing the same atrocities that Israel was committing against Palestine by deliberately targeting civilians and children. So I really don't know how else to stress that what we do unto others will eventually make its way around to us. And this is the era in which it makes itself to us. So,
Ian?
Yeah, well, Julie, certainly a scary moment for this family. Destiny and Sean Jackson say they were on their normal route home yesterday when they saw the protest unfolding, eventually getting caught up in the crowds as chemical deterrents and flashbangs exploded around them.
Which is yet another reason why using those kinds of things to disperse crowds is against the law. It's at least against, international law. And in the United States, I guess, using tear gas and flashbangs against protesters who are protesting against tyranny is just commonplace now. So the other thing that is not lost on anyone is the fact that whenever Nazis, the Proud Boys, or anybody that's conservative decides to rile up the crowd or do anything else, they're never met with the same kind of violence, the same kind of brutality that peaceful protesters trying to protest against oppression do. So, mind you, the escalation is coming from the police and ICE, who are using these weapons against civilian protesters exercising their First Amendment rights. Peacefully, at that, for those that really care about that specificity. And because of the aggression and the violence that is being doled out by ICE, innocent people who had nothing to do with the protest in the first place get caught up in it and, yes, injured, become casualties in this theater of war. And that's, yet again, part of the problem. You shouldn't be accidentally caught up in a violent response to exercising your First Amendment rights. And the fact that we have normalized it for so long that this is now being argued as justified or unjustified and that, oh darn, there happens to be victims and it's just really unfortunate for them, just goes to show how far we have fallen from an actual democracy. So.
Chaotic moments in North Minneapolis Wednesday night as chemical gas, flashbangs, and fireworks were exchanged.
We were leaving South Minneapolis from our son's basketball game at Anderson Middle School.
As the night unfolded,
We started to see, lights and stuff.
one North Minneapolis family trying to make their way home.
Like, even trying to leave, I couldn't go backwards, forward. It was like I was just stuck.
Destiny and Sean Jackson, along with their 6 kids, had just left a nearby grocery store after the game when they turned onto Lyndale. Sean says they tried to take a side street after they saw the crowds.
There's nothing we can do if it's blocked off.
Sean and Destiny say they were stuck between crowds of protesters and law enforcement. When law enforcement tried to disperse the crowd,
All we heard was boom, and every airbag deployed.
they say a flashbang went off near their car as tear gas enveloped them.
And I was screaming to my oldest son, Sean, I'm like, get out, get out. Like, I can't, Mom, and I can't breathe.
Destiny says bystanders pulled her into a home to check on her as she screamed that her 6-month-old child was still in the car.
He was just like lifeless, like he had like foam like around his mouth, and he had tears coming out his eyes. I was giving him mouth to mouth, and I remember stopping and I said, I will give you all my breath till you get yours back, because nobody wants to see their kids like that.
The family was taken to the hospital, all now okay.
Like, my kids' stuff is still in the car. My son's school stuff.
A family on their way home, caught in chaos. And the family says physically they are okay, but the mental side of things has been challenging for them. And financially, they say it will be tough to replace their vehicle. We have ways to help them right now over on KARE11.com. Julie.
Oh, your heart goes out to them. Thank you, Ian.
You know, it literally cannot be stressed enough that wantonly attacking protesters, wantonly shooting off tear gas and flashbangs to disperse crowds in residential neighborhoods is endangering everyone. The police, ICE, the protesters, and people who have nothing to do with anything with it other than the fact that they happen to exist there in that moment. Again, if they are deploying tear gas, and these look like fairly dense neighborhoods, right? Like very packed, not very wide roads. If that tear gas makes it into a home, as it will because it flows through the air, it could dramatically disrupt people's air quality in the home, right? Because where do you think the air comes from your AC or your heat, right? It gets sucked in from the outside, it gets the cool or the hot applied to it, and then it circulates through your house. Now imagine you're elderly on oxygen and all of a sudden flashbangs and tear gas are going off around your house and it starts drifting into your vents and now your house is getting gassed. These terrorists, I mean, honestly, ICE agents are domestic terrorists. They're Nazis. I mean, a lot of people are saying we should call them Confederates because I guess that's more suitable for American history. I don't really care what we call them. But what we should be highlighting is the fact that they are endangering communities and neighborhoods and lives with their antics and with zero regard for anyone's safety, to include their own. And of course, this is going to meet with more protesting and with more pushback against their presence there. And what's worse is the more they escalate, the more the people turn out to push them away, the more they continue to escalate. And the fact that the Minneapolis mayor, the fact that Tim Walz, the governor, could be expelling ICE from Minneapolis. They could be ordering the police to arrest ICE. The fact that neither of these things are happening is proof, is absolute empirical evidence that the Democrats are just as complicit to these atrocities as the Trump administration is for ordering and carrying them out. And the worst part is, Trump is only doing this because he wants the imagery of chaos and asserting control over that chaos. But Minnesota is not going to capitulate. Minnesota is not giving in. Minneapolis, least of all. So even though there are 3,000 ICE agents to their, 1,000 police officers, there are still 450-odd thousand Minneapolis that are not playing games with these clowns. So even ICE, in its current manning, in its current form, cannot subjugate Minneapolis. So this chaos is failing to produce the effect that this administration wants in the first place, to distract from the Epstein files, to distract from whatever else. But on top of that, the chaos is the point. That is the goal. And no matter how much harm they are causing, it seems as though the leadership that could do something about it refuses to. So we have to ask ourselves, are we going to just sit idly by and watch this on the news and wonder, oh darn, I hope this doesn't happen to me, and then when it does, get outraged because it's happening to us? Or are we going to do something about it? Are we going to demand action? And that's what we need to be talking about, not just about Minneapolis, but in your own community. Because make no mistake, ICE is making the rounds. In Columbus, or in Ohio, they're in Columbus, they're in Cincinnati, they're in Cleveland, they're in Dayton. I think they're in Athens. They've shown up in Lancaster. They have been all over the place. And their numbers continue to increase slowly but surely. There will come a point where ICE does have the numbers to even go after places like Los Angeles or New York City. Are we going to allow them to swell their numbers to that point to terrorize and occupy our cities? Or are we going to do something about it? Are we going to contact our representatives and demand that they put an end to this? You know, there's a few articles floating around that Congress people are going to invoke the 25th. Well, stop talking about it and get that shit done. Let's contact our Congress people, the House representatives and our senators, and demand that they look at the 25th Amendment to removing him for mental ineptitude. Because if we allow this to continue for even a single second longer, the likelihood that this will happen to you in your community only increases exponentially. So,
a Sunday church service is now under investigation by the Justice Department.
Right.
An anti-ICE
I'm
protest
sorry,
made its way.
I didn't mean to gloss over your comment there. Correct. The victims that we just covered is the fact that they're not immigrants, nor were they even protesters. They were in the wrong place at the wrong time. And again, to even say that being at a protest is the wrong place at the wrong time just goes to show how much our rights have been eroded by this tolerance, this social tolerance of brutal crackdowns against our First Amendment rights. This is unacceptable, and the longer it continues, the further from being able to recover we get.
Way into a St. Paul sanctuary during service. Protesters say a pastor at City's Church is also the acting director of the St. Paul Field Office of ICE. The Justice Department says it is investigating the incident, saying protesters violated the FACE Act. That law prohibits intimidating or interfering with people's rights to practice their faith. U.S. Attorney General.
So, we're going to protect the First Amendment right to religion, but we're not going to protect the First Amendment right to protest? The picking and choosing of when to enforce and when to protect is very obvious, is very seen by anybody with two brain cells to rub together.
General Pam Bondi has already responded, saying any violations of the law will be prosecuted, adding, quote, attacks against law enforcement and the intimidation of Christians are being met with full force of federal law.
Peaceful protests took place out.
Well, maybe we should say that all of these peaceful protests against ICE are Christians exercising their rights and their religious values, because literally Jesus Christ preached, blessed are the merciful, blessed are the meek, and blessed is the foreigner. So, I mean, the absolute hypocrisy in suggesting that these protesters trying to push ICE out of a church and then using the church as a cover for Christian beliefs, when none of this behavior by ICE or the administration remotely resembles Christ. And remember how we have the the religious gateway here. Blessed are the poor who mourn, the meek, who hunger and thirst for righteousness, the merciful, the pure in heart, the peacemakers, and the persecuted. Right? The fulfillment of the law. Right? Oaths, eye for eye, love for enemies. Right? This is Christian values. And what we're seeing happen in the streets of Minnesota by ICE, by this government, is in stark contrast to each of these. So I think maybe we should play their own game against them and claim that these are religious protests of real Christians against atrocities being committed by our government. Maybe that's the angle we finally need to take to combat Christian nationalism.
Outside the federal Whipple building just yesterday, around midday, no federal officers were spotted outside. However, Hennepin County Sheriff's deputies were on hand. We've also learned the Veterans Affairs Office in the Whipple building is temporarily closing. In a posting on its website, it says it'll have staff available for veterans at the VA hospital in Minneapolis, along with online. They did not give a reason for that closure. And along with the protests that took place this weekend, the battle of words between state and federal officials, that continues.
Yesterday morning, both Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey appeared on CBS's Face the Nation. Noem blamed Minnesota leaders, including Frey, for recent violence. She suggested protesters to be confined to a peaceful protest zone. Frey said he will not limit the First Amendment.
Protesters should be confined to a peaceful protest zone. I'm sorry. Where in the Constitution, under the First Amendment, did it say that you can only protest in a secure zone? Where do we have it conveniently up here? I guess not. Let's see. Let's see. First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. It seems to me forcing people to be specifically in this authorized zone to protest would be the exact opposite of this law of prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging, right? And I get that Kristi Noem is in Congress, but that she is the federal government or a representative of the federal government. And so anyone with the authority to exercise power has to still follow the Constitution because that is the ultimate rule of the land. And if she is trying to insinuate that protesters should be confined to this area and anybody outside of it can be gassed, arrested, or anything else, this is exactly what Israel did to Palestinians, saying, if you are here after noon, we're going to bomb the shit out of this, and if you die, it's your own fault. And then when the Palestinians moved to this other area, they bombed that anyway. So no, absolutely fucking not. Kristi Noem trying to force protesters into this little box and then assaulting them anyway is an egregious violation of our First Amendment rights.
Amendment.
If he would set up a peaceful protest zone so that these individuals can exercise their First Amendment rights and do so peacefully, we would love that. Because then we could work together to make sure we're getting criminals to justice and letting people still express their First Amendment rights.
First Amendment speech is not limited to one park or one section of the city. You are allowed to protest so long as you're doing it peacefully. And by the way, we've got tens of thousands of people in Minneapolis that are grinning down the bear, that are peacefully expressing their First Amendment rights. So no, you can't have just one section of a city. That's not the way First Amendment works.
ICE says an undocumented immigrant picked up in Minneapolis died in their custody. 36-year-old Victor Manuel Diaz of Nicaragua was being held at Camp East Montana in El Paso, Texas. According to an ICE...
So, during this surge in Minneapolis, ICE kidnapped Victor Manuel Diaz, sent him to El Paso, Texas, trafficked him to El Paso, Texas, where he then died under presumed suicide. We have death camps. Remember how I said we have death camps? We have death camps in America. We have the Stasi, the Gestapo, the SS, kidnapping people off the street, trafficking them to these camps, and are getting themselves killed. Whether it's outright murder to the conditions, whether it's something more heinous than that, or when they abuse these kidnapped human beings at these death camps, they abuse them so thoroughly that the injuries leads to their death, so they have to make up a suicide. Which we have already also seen, that ICE tried to cover up the death of a detainee, of a kidnapped person, by claiming it was something other than the homicide that it was. And yet, nothing has happened to any of these agents that have been found guilty or have been shown to be responsible for the deaths. So that means we have de facto death camps and de facto kill squads. In the United States of America, in the year of our Lord, 2026. Maybe I missed the part of the Bible where it said death camps. So let's okay, nothing about death camps. Genocide. Oh, topical. Okay, well, that was in Esther 3 where Ahasuerus and Haman decreed the death of all Jews. So, I mean, there is mention of genocide in the Bible, but as, you know, a warning and highlighting how it's a bad thing. Compliance. Topical. Servile compliance. Okay, so slavery. Are we going to head towards chattel slavery, restoring slavery in the United States of America? Because, I mean, granted, prison labor is essentially slave indentured servitude too. So, you know, I'm just saying, like, you have to dig real deep in the Bible to even find these terms and these anecdotes, and typically they're warnings when you do find them. So, no, this is beyond unacceptable. Any death at all in a detention center, in a prison, in any of these areas where the government is taking care of people, guilty, innocent, or otherwise, any amount of deaths, other than from the death penalty, is unacceptable. And it's just a talking point that is barely going to make a headline. This is not the kind of country we want to be, because the further down this road we go, the more likely it is to become the next Rene Good or the next Victor Manuel Diaz. And yes, that means you. No, yes, that includes if you support Trump, if you are white, even if you are conservative. All it takes is finding yourself in the wrong place at the wrong time with trigger-happy goons, and they could kill you in the street and not even get investigated. So, think about that. Really start letting that sink in. Because the longer we hesitate and wait to address these concerns, the sooner and faster it will come to our doorstep, to your doorstep.
Statement. He was unresponsive in his room and agents contacted medical staff. It says he died from a presumed suicide, though his death is still under investigation.
Another big headline from this weekend is the possibility of active duty soldiers being deployed here. A U.S. defense official tells CBS News 1,500 active duty soldiers are on standby in Alaska for possible deployment to Minneapolis.
I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty sure the Kent State massacre was guardsmen. I don't think it was active duty. But I can assure you that mobilizing the active duty for any reason whatsoever to invade a United States city is unconstitutional. It is an unlawful order in every capacity. The only times that a active duty service member should be deployed anywhere in the United States is if we are being invaded by a foreign adversary or if we're in the middle of a civil war, which we're not. I mean, not yet. I mean, at the rate we're going, we could be Civil War 2.0, but suffice to say, every single one of those 1,500 service members in Alaska if they obey those orders to deploy to Minneapolis, they are breaking the law. And if they deploy to Minneapolis and then assault civilians on top of that, now they've committed war crimes. On top of breaking the law, i.e. following an unlawful order.
Those soldiers are from the 11th Airborne Division in Alaska. President Trump has said that he is considering invoking the Insurrection Act, which gives him the authority to deploy armed forces domestically. The Minnesota National Guard is also on standby by orders of Governor Tim Walz to support, quote, the rights of all who assemble peacefully. On Saturday, Guard vehicles could be seen around the...
So Walz did mobilize the National Guard, presumably to support protesters. Now, whether or not he actually follows through on that remains to be seen, because protesters are continuously getting tear gassed and flashbanged to the detriment of at least one family, and God knows how many others who have already suffered permanent eye injury. So either the National Guard is there for show, or Tim Walz doesn't have the spine to actually issue the order. Now, that would be the proper use of the National Guard, to use them against ICE and expel them from the city and the state. That is exactly what should be happening. And the fact that it isn't actively happening as we speak is definitely concerning.
The Twin Cities metro area prepared for potential unrest. Protesters demonstrated throughout the weekend, as they have every day since the deadly shooting of Renee Good by an ICE agent in Minneapolis. That was a week and a half ago. A small group of pro-ICE demonstrators tangled with those against immigration enforcement. And last night on 60 Minutes, the Minneapolis police chief shared his concerns about the killing of Good.
We're in this 2020 moment. All these tensions have been building. And I'm afraid we're going to have another moment where it all explodes.
If the Minnesota National Guard troops are...
So do your job. Do your job. Arrest the motherfucker who murdered Renee Good. Problem solved. Well, not really. You still got to expel ICE from the city, but there you go. Arrest members of ICE. Arrest the domestic terrorists in your town, but especially arrest the ones that are harming citizens, making them blind, throwing flashbangs at children, and killing people in cold blood. That is literally your purview. That is literally your area of responsibility. I don't know what else to say.
Are deployed. They say they will wear a yellow reflective vest to distinguish themselves from federal agents. Normally, the Minnesota National Guard is under the command of the governor. But if President Trump invokes the Insurrection Act, that puts the soldiers under the control of President Trump. We'll have more on the federal crackdown happening in Minnesota in our second half hour, including the temporary closure of a couple of Twin Cities hotels and concerns expressed by letter carriers.
We begin today's show in Minneapolis, Minnesota, as the Pentagon's place.
Okay. So this is the Democracy Now! Take? All right.
1,500 soldiers from the 11th Airborne Division in Alaska to be on standby to possibly be deployed to Minnesota just days after President Trump threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act as protests continue over ICE's immigration crackdown. The Trump administration says it's opened criminal investigations into Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, who've sharply...
Something that people aren't really, I think, understanding when they hear about the protests in Minneapolis. Usually when you hear about people protesting, you think, oh, people out in the sunshine getting a little sweaty with their signs, right? Or maybe it's the fall and they're gathered or whatnot, right? But you don't usually think of protesters in the middle of winter enduring the snow and the ice, like the literal ice, standing out in frigid below 32-degree weather with wind chill probably in the single digits or lower, out there protesting. You just never picture that, right? That's exactly what people are doing in Minneapolis. Shit is so bad in Minneapolis right now. People are standing out in the freezing cold with snow, with ice, with the wind chill factor causing even worse cold. They are enduring all of that in the middle of a Minnesota winter and still protesting ICE in the hundreds and the thousands. Like, if that's not a sign that shit is bad, that people are willing to endure the elements to have their voices heard, and that makes them being attacked and assaulted by these federal agents that much more egregious. All right? Because most people go out of their way to not go outside when it's this cold. People will actually work from home. People will order groceries to come delivered to their homes, right? Schools get closed and canceled when it's too cold, right? So how bad does the situation have to be that your natural instinct to be at home in the warmth is overridden by your outrage and your righteous indignation to hold your government accountable for crimes being committed against you, your neighbors, and your city? I cannot think of a greater example of patriotism, of dedication, and evidence of how bad things actually are than to see people in the dead of winter protesting in these numbers. That should be the canary in the coal mine. That should be letting everybody know in the country, like, shit is out of hand and we need to be doing something about this.
Criticized ICE's tactics. In a statement, Walsh said, quote, weaponizing the justice system and threatening political opponents is a dangerous authoritarian tactic, unquote. This comes after the FBI reportedly opened a civil rights probe into the ICE agent who killed Renee Good, but then pivoted to focus instead on whether Good and her widow assaulted the agent. Meanwhile, on Friday, a federal judge...
So the DOJ started investigating the murderer and then pivoted instead in investigating the murder victim. Like, it is becoming harder and harder to even come up with the mental gymnastics necessary to claim that Trump is the good guy or that America is the good guy. The DOJ is started investigating the murderer and then stopped investigating the murderer to investigate the murder victim. Do you understand how batshit insane that is? But unfortunately, that's also normalized in our country. Unfortunately, the normalization is amongst minority groups, right? The dash American. Because, and I'm saying it that crassly because I don't think nearly enough Americans understand how heinous the criminal justice system has been to Hispanic people, to black people, to Asian people, to Islamic people, to Hindu people, to Asian people, to anyone who isn't white. I cannot fathom that people understand just how brutal the criminal justice system has been to every single minority group in this country at one point or another or to the present. And now they are using those same tactics against white Minnesotans, white Americans. They are using the same police brutality tactics against white Americans. And now white Americans are like, this is actually kind of a problem. No shit, Sherlock. Why don't you talk to your black friends who are probably not really your friends but acquaintances that you happen to know and ask them, has this been happening to y'all for recently? And they'll be like, no, this has been going on since long before the slave era. This has always been America for people of color. And now we're seeing it unfold for everybody, not just people of color, still predominantly people of color, but now we're roping in dissidents, protesters, anybody who doesn't bend the knee and kiss the ring. So buckle up, America, because if we allow Renee Good to be investigated while her murderer walks free, this will become the new normal. As we are already beginning to see in the news, the arguments, the reporting, the presentation is still in the news. Maybe not Minneapolis news, but national news, starting to brush this under the rug and highlight the fact that maybe Renee was in the wrong. And a few months from now, the story might very well be that she was in the wrong and she was trying to run over this guy due to the preponderance of whatever evidence. Even though we know with our own eyes and ears, we saw that video. And we saw that the ICE agent themselves stepped in front of the vehicle and then opened fire. And then as they were walking away said, "Fucking bitch," while her body was still warm. Within seconds of having her life taken away, he walks away and says, "Fucking bitch." Mark my words, in a couple months, he's going to be lauded as a hero and she's going to be thrown under the bus even harder. As a vile Antifa Special Forces agent or whatever nonsense they're going to come up with. We cannot allow this to be normalized. We cannot. So hopefully Trump gets Article 25. Well, 25th Amendmented. Sorry. That was too much military in there for me. But the more this becomes normal, the more this becomes a talking point rather than universal outrage and disgust with demands for justice, the worse it gets for all of us.
Judge ordered ICE agents to stop arresting or pepper spraying peaceful demonstrators in Minneapolis. On Sunday, demonstrators disrupted Sunday services at a church in St. Paul to protest one of the church's pastors, David Easterwood, who they say is a top ICE official in the Twin Cities.
David Easterwood is a pastor here. He is also the director of the field office for ICE in St. Paul. So someone who claims to worship God, teaching people in this church about God, is out there overseeing ICE agents.
The Department of Justice says it's opened an investigation.
Who was the news person? Like, what was their news affiliation? Because that was like an official reporter reporting on this shit.
Into the protesters. In another development, the Trump administration's being accused of denying legal counsel to many arrested during the immigration sweeps. Multiple attorneys say they've been blocked from seeing clients held at the Whipple Federal Building in Minneapolis. Meanwhile, ICE agents continue to carry...
Which, I mean, among many other violations of people's rights, you have the right to an attorney. All right, I can't remember off the top of my head which one that is. Sixth Amendment, which I think we do have up here. I guess we didn't immediately have it up here. We may as well have all the amendments up and listed, right? So we can click on them right away. So let's go ahead and actually do that. So we'll do the 4th, 5th, and 6th. So, in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Right there. So the fact that ICE is denying due process, that on top of everything else, and a lawyer, so you're not getting due process, i.e. justification, and B, you're not getting access to your attorney, means ICE truly is acting outside of the bounds of law, especially given they're not being held accountable for any of these aggressions and omissions of the law. So again, ICE is not doing anything legally. They are not a lawful body at this point, and they aren't even carrying out their mandate, which is to have judicial warrants issued for whatever immigrant they are going to engage with. That is ICE's mandate. That hasn't changed. Hopefully it doesn't change, but given this Congress, it might. And the cowardly nature of Democrats, they might actually end up supporting it. But as of today, ICE does not have the authority to stop and frisk, to interact with civilians in any capacity. They don't have the right to do what they're doing now. And they need to be held accountable. Cannot be stressed enough.
Carry out raids in St. Paul. Armed masked agents battered down the door of a home and without a warrant arrested a man led out of home in his underwear in sub-freezing weather. It turned out the man was a naturalized U.S. citizen born in Laos. For more...
Again, just going door to door, breaking down those doors, and then kidnapping people, arresting them. And, oh, by the way, guess you were an American anyway. I wish I would have had a warrant and an actual address so I would not have made this mistake, right? Wrong. Again, we can argue that terrorism is the point and purpose behind these raids and these actions, but it still doesn't change the fact that these are extremely illegal actions and that we do have the right to self-defense. That the Second Amendment does exist to ensure a free state. Just throwing that out there.
We go to Minneapolis for a report from Democracy Now!'s John Hamilton on the ground there this weekend, speaking with people about how communities are organizing against the ICE raids.
James Schwesnadol is a volunteer with the Community Rapid Response Group on the lookout for federal agents in his Minneapolis neighborhood.
Just driving around my neighborhood, kind of picking an area to just keep an eye on, looking out for any ICE or Customs and Border Patrol.
Hundreds of legal observers like James now patrol the streets of the Twin Cities each day on the lookout for masked federal agents in unmarked vehicles.
And then I'm on a...
So, when they say unmarked, they obviously mean that they have license plates, but that they aren't showing that they are ICE. And look at these vehicles. These are SUVs. These are very common vehicles anywhere in the country. Ohio, Texas, Minneapolis, right? So it's extremely difficult to find when ICE is getting somewhere if you don't know what to look for, because they are in plain clothes for one, and they are driving normal looking vehicles, right? I mean, these look like you could have rented them at an airport, right? Now, the only maybe giveaway is the tinting, but I think that's more of the camera angle and the reflection than anything else. But at least one of those vehicles looks like they're pretty well tinted. So, I mean, if you see soccer vans and soccer SUVs with extra tint, maybe send a message in your local ICE community watch group.
A signal chat with people in my neighborhood here, and then there's people all over the neighborhood who are following that signal chat, and if they see a message that ICE is, passing through their block or getting out of their cars on their block or the next block over, they're ready to run out and, videotape, do constitutional observing, blow whistles, let neighbors know that ICE is on the block and it's not safe to come outside.
You know what? At the risk of getting kicked off of Twitch, I'm going to point something out. Those helmets, at best, are level 3 rating. What does that mean, Sam? Tell us. So, if we go and look at what an armor rating means. Armor levels is crucial for choosing appropriate protective gear as defined by the National Institute of Justice. There are 5 distinct body armor ballistics levels: 2A, 2, 3A, 3, and 4. 2A offers protection against lower velocity 9mm and 40 caliber S&W ammunition. Level 2 Increased protection, including higher velocity 357 Magnum and 9mm ammunition. Level 3A. Even greater protection suitable for high velocity 9mm and 44 Magnum. Level 3 resists rifle rounds, specifically 7.62, which is your standard NATO round, and is also equivalent to the 5.56 round, which is what the military uses. Level 4, the highest NIG body armor level designed to withstand armor-piercing rifle rounds. Now, if we were going to look for this, do they not do helmets on this website? Well, take a look. They offer level 4 plates and plate carriers, but they do not offer level 4 shields. They also, this company specifically doesn't offer level 4 helmets, or any helmets for that matter. But let's take a look at the level 4 body armor. You have a couple of different, plates that, and how they look. Now, the rigidness, right? Like kind of pentagonal, right? Or this is octagonal, but more so on like for the torso. Let's take a look at their bodies. These men are wearing vests. These men have their plate carriers where they have their ammo in front of them. And then they are wearing helmets with no face shields and no surrounding on the temple or the ears. It is literally essentially a bike helmet that covers the scalp but leaves the ears, the jaw and the face, and the front of the face fully open. Now, whether or not those are level 4 helmets, which I'm going to guess they aren't, especially if they're issued by the Department of Homeland Security, because then they're definitely not issuing level 4. Because I don't even think the military in combat zone gets level 4 unless they're special forces. Could be wrong, but, Let's just say, though, these are personal issue. Let's look up ballistic helmets. Notice how all of these are the exact same design as what we are seeing in the videos here by every one of these clowns, right? So, anywhere from 600, which is probably not a level 4. Well, actually, it says right there, level 3A. So, let's see if we can search by level 4. Does not... Oh! Ha! American made and China made. I bet if we analyze these a little bit, we would find out that they're made in China. But all of the Chinas are level 3A, which we said only offers protection up to 9mm rounds and 44 Magnum ammunition. Level 3 is where rifle protection starts coming into play. So, the likelihood that the body armor that these pieces of shit are wearing in the first place would protect against anything substantial like a rifle is slim to none. On top of that, you can see that the way that these plate carriers are actually adhering to the chest, right? Because an actual plate character would kind of look like this, right? You wear your plate, and it would have some sort of blockiness, right? Either from the plate itself or under the shirt, right? If you don't see that, and I have rarely seen that amongst anyone that wasn't a police officer, these people are armed and they have helmets and nothing else. So, at the risk of getting reported or banned by Twitch for pointing out that ICE agents, on average, do not have the body armor to withstand 9mm rounds, or high velocity rounds at that, from every other part of their body, the front of their face, right, down, so be it. Because Ohio is a stand your ground state. And honestly, let's find out how many states are stand your ground states, because now I'm very curious. So it looks like there are 31 states. It does not look like Minnesota is one of them. But let's point out, oh look, even better, visual representation. No duty to retreat. All right? Nebraska, Minnesota. Right, there's Minnesota. No duty to retreat. Or I'm sorry, has a duty to retreat. Notice where Trump is sending ICE. Illinois, duty to retreat. Minnesota, duty to retreat. Colorado, New Mexico, I don't know that we've heard big things about that. New York, duty to retreat. California, duty to retreat. Portland, Oregon. What do they... duty to retreat. They're talking about invading Maine next. Duty to retreat. I've heard about them trying to get into Massachusetts. Duty to retreat. I don't know if I've heard them say anything about Vermont. Where's Maryland? Maryland. It looks, yep. District of Columbia. Delaware is a duty to retreat. Maryland is a duty to retreat. And Virginia, surprisingly, is a duty to retreat. Notice how wherever ICE is being deployed as a duty to retreat state. Yeah, fine, we can argue Texas. Why are they in Texas? Well, if you are an illegal immigrant, an undocumented immigrant, an illegal immigrant, right? You don't have the right to bear arms. You don't have the right to get a firearm, right? And a lot of immigration statuses don't let you get a firearm either. So that would be one of the reasons. But you also don't see them terrorizing white neighborhoods in Texas. You see them terrorizing brown neighborhoods and brown places in Texas, right? Same thing with Ohio. You don't see them in the news going door to door. You don't see them in the news terrorizing white communities. You don't see them unilaterally tear gassing people at school or in workplaces or at Home Depot, because these motherfuckers will get shot on sight. And I cannot stress enough that there is reasonable concern for your own personal safety if you see an ICE agent. Because they have, for the past year, unilaterally broken every single amendment in the Constitution that would otherwise govern them. Congress has refused to hold them accountable, and DHS continues to escalate across the board. ICE has gotten away with murdering people in cold blood, in broad daylight, in literal daytime. So if you see ICE, there is a very good chance that somebody or yourself are in imminent danger to their life, limb, or eyesight, which is exactly the definition that is necessary to institute self-defense. So, I'm not saying if you're in the state of Ohio and if you see ICE in the state of Ohio that you should just open up an entire clip on them, because you're still going to have to defend yourself in court. And this administration has made it very clear that they will rather go after anybody else other than their secret police force. So, if you're going to, or if you happen to see ICE in Ohio harassing people and you're armed, be sure to also be recording and to ask first for them to identify themselves, as they seem like a very suspicious group in your community, and Ohio does not have a duty to retreat. If they don't identify themselves or claim that they're ICE, then tell them to produce a warrant. If they still refuse, remind them about the lack of duty to retreat and make sure that it is being recorded. At that point, do whatever you feel is best or that you can live with. Because this shit has to stop somewhere. And the fact that this administration is targeting duty to retreat states to fulfill their goals of chaos and disruption and terror is despicable, cowardly behavior. And it's no surprise whatsoever that they are not engaging in these tactics in these green states, because they would be met with a hailstorm of bullets and destruction. So, at the risk of being reported and shut down by Twitch, I just wanted to point out unequivocally that the state of Ohio and every green state on this map, which I have left up for this whole rant, please screenshot and share with your friends, family, and neighbors. These are the states where ICE better not fuck around, because they will find out, and enough good old boys will get past the jury and the judicial system, and yes, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. So, keep an eye out, protect yourselves, and protect your neighbors. And understand that these states that are not stand your ground, that have a duty to retreat, are the targets of this administration, because they know that the people have less grounds to defend themselves. And mark my words, if anybody in your state assembly, your state government, tries to start talking about curbing duty to retreat laws or instituting them, be prepared. Be prepared. Go out of your way to challenge them. Get petitions signed. Do whatever it takes. Because if they strip you of your right to not have to retreat, that means they are opening the doors for this kind of military police authoritarian bullshit. And then you have only one choice left: to exercise your second as it stands, or to be a good German.
Activities like these are protected by the First Amendment, but that hasn't stopped federal agents from deploying violence against people who track their movements.
And now we know why. I mean, granted, I assumed as much anyway, but now we unequivocally know why they are so bold in enacting violence against the people of Minneapolis. It's because they know that the people of Minneapolis do not have the right, the legal justification to just put them down like the fucking dogs that they are.
Move your car now, you're obstructing. Get out of the way. Get out of the way.
Patty O'Keefe is a 36-year-old South Minneapolis resident who learned that lesson firsthand.
I live about 8 blocks away from where Renee Good was murdered. Last Sunday, January 11th, I was out patrolling and observing ICE with my friend Brandon when we were violently arrested and detained. When we got on the scene, the ICE agents were getting back into their 2 vehicles. There were a number of people who had shown up by that point, and so they decided to leave the area. So they turned down a side street, and we proceeded to follow them on that side street and continue blowing our whistles and honking our horns. 30, 40 seconds into doing that, they stopped their car, got out of the car, surrounded my vehicle, screamed at us to stop following them, told us we were obstructing them, even though there was no one in front of their cars. We weren't at an active ICE raid even. They could have just kept going forward. And then one of the agents proceeded to spray pepper spray into the front windshield vent of my vehicle. So we got pepper spray in the car, which was, hurt our eyes and our mouths and our throats. And they got back in the vehicles, kept driving, and when we didn't turn around, they stopped the car again, got out.
You can go forward! We are not obstructing! We are not obstructing! You can go forward! You can go forward! We're not obstructing! We are not obstructing! We know our rights!
They broke our 2 front windows and dragged us out, arrested us, and brought us to detention.
I am definitely a broken record at this point, but it is not legal for them to do because they do not have policing authority in any capacity. So a cop might have the legal justification to do that. ICE never does.
Get out of the car.
Yes, sir.
Get the out of the car.
Yes, sir. I'm coming out.
You got any weapons on you? Put your hand behind your back.
Sir, I got passport.
Shut up. Shut the up. Sir, you are under arrest for impeding operations.
I was in the vehicle with 3 ICE agents, and as soon as they all got into the vehicle and shut the doors, they just immediately started taunting me, making fun of me. One of them took a photo of me and showed it to the other agents, and, you know, they were just laughing, you know, insinuated that I was ugly. And then one of the agents, the one who had sprayed the...
I mean, if we're talking about lawful behavior in the first place, I mean, mocking civilians after you detain them and trying to intimidate them, I mean, that's definitely not legal, right? I mean, I think we can all agree on that, right?
Pepper spray into my car, proceeded to say, "You guys got to stop obstructing us. That's why that lesbian bitch is dead," referring to Renee Good.
Do not break.
I mean, so they're openly bragging about murdering her too. And this isn't Nazi Germany? This is perfectly normal conduct?
Other legal observers have experienced physical abuse. A disabled U.S. Marine Corps veteran named Sky suffered bruised arms, hands, and legs after being violently pulled from the driver's seat by federal agents.
Get out of the car. Put the car in park. Get out of the car. Put the car in park. Get out of the car.
Yeah, these are well-trained, emotionally stable individuals armed to the teeth without any accountability in the streets of America, attacking and assaulting some civilians because they can.
Virginia,
TBN. You know I'm a Marine Corps veteran.
I don't care what you are.
Others have had their license plates and faces scanned by ICE, with agents even following them to their homes.
ICE is at my house.
This is an intimidation tactic.
Yeah.
Judy and Noah Levy were at their home in St. Paul on January 6th when they got an alert.
Someone from my book club sent a message on the group chat that, hey, I think ICE is staging in the parking lot of a grocery store that closed down several blocks away. So we drove over, and there were about 8 SUVs lined up kind of tail to tail. Some had plates, some didn't.
They stopped us almost right away.
They stopped traffic. The first car that was behind them was about to take a right-hand turn. They surrounded him. There were like 5 agents that we could see from, several car lengths back where we were. We could hear that they were giving him a really hard time.
No, he's alone.
And then the agents that weren't occupied, the employees that weren't occupied with him, started coming back, and car by car, they took photographs through the windshield.
They're saying, get out of the car, roll down your window.
And we didn't do either thing. We just said, hey, we don't want to talk to you.
I do not want to talk to you. You're in our neighborhood.
You're in our neighborhood.
You're in our neighborhood. I have every right to be here.
I'm driving.
You are in our neighborhood.
I'm driving.
You are in our
After the dude took our photographs through the windshield and checked the plate, he came to my passenger side window, just kind of knocked on it and said, hello, Judith, how are you today? What can I do for you, Judith?
Do not threaten me. Do not threaten me.
As I told you, I go by Judy. Nobody calls me Judith unless they've just run my plates. Of course, the next day, they killed someone who was doing just what we were doing. They killed Renee Good. And they've escalated. You know, the violence has escalated, the harassment, the abuse, the beatings, you know, the kidnappings. The every day they're wreaking havoc. They're speeding through the neighborhood. They're causing accidents. They're disappearing people before the police can even get there.
And what we did was legal.
Yeah, what we did was legal.
It was legal to follow them. It's legal to film them. And they were trying to chill that. And I will have to say that was incredibly intimidating.
That intimidation is felt most in Minneapolis's diverse neighborhoods, like the Lake Street corridor, where
I'm not gonna lie, folks. I'm trying actively to, maybe we should move on to a different video, because if I'm having trouble with this video, and I'm a veteran, and white, and male, I can only imagine what anybody else would be having with this video, because this is literally the evidence that ICE is terrorizing Minneapolis, that they are doing vehicle searches, that they are doing personnel searches, that they are using intimidation tactics, that they are openly bragging about murdering somebody in cold blood. And the fact that Minneapolis is resisting is incredible. It brings so much pride to my chest, to my heart and soul, that there are still Americans, that there are still patriots in this country who are not going to bend and bow and not just look the other way while atrocities occur in their headlines, to their neighbors, to their friends and family. Minneapolis, they're real ones. And I get it. Not every Minneapolis person is out there, you know, willing to get themselves harassed or hurt, but enough of them are. And a lot of these people are people who would have otherwise never engaged in these kind of protests or tracking or oversight, because they know it's dangerous, because it's become dangerous. And guess what? When you push people into a corner with no other means of getting out, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to fight back. And Minneapolis is being pushed into a corner, and they're showing that they're going to fight back. So, Minneapolis, in my book, right now is the most patriotic city in America. They are doing and resisting the same shit colonists endured that led to the War of Revolution. Right? This shit is what the redcoats were doing to colonists. Granted, this shit is what police are doing in black and brown communities all across America since the end of slavery and since before. But we are seeing it happen at a much larger scale, with a much more deliberate intent. And I don't think we are highlighting enough the heroism of these communities that have endured for centuries, or the courage of people from Minneapolis across the demographic spectrum that are standing up against tyranny directly and intrinsically. So, this is unironically one of the best videos I've ever seen from Democracy Now! And Amy Goodman is barely in it, right? This is journalism. This is journalism. This is reporting. This is what should be airing on ABC, MSNBC, NBC, CBS. These are all of the alphabet media networks should be airing this video. Because I guarantee people don't understand how bad it actually is. People also don't want to know how bad it really is. But the difference is the Germans didn't know, because there wasn't means to find out. We do know, and we do have the means to find out. Ignorance is a choice in the information age. So it is our moral imperative, our duty and responsibility, to make sure that people are aware of this. Because if we fail this test of pushing back, of highlighting how bad things are and how out of pocket these agents are. If we fail now, tomorrow, or the day after, it is gonna come to our own communities and homes. And sure, if you happen to be in one of these, 31 states, make your choice. But if you're in the other 19, you're going to suffer. And the other problem is, if they start getting a foothold in these other 19 states, that means they are going to be able to branch into the other states and actually fight back and push back despite the no duty to retreat. So make no mistake, they are gearing up for something. Martial law, Civil War 2.0, just straight up Nazi-style authoritarian occupation. But whatever it is, we can stop them in their tracks by not giving in and by educating the rest of our countrymen that this shit is as bad as we say it is, if not worse. So, again, every single one of these videos has to do with ICE in Minneapolis. So, let's do the DOJ.
We begin tonight with breaking news in Minnesota and the showdown
Nazi
between the
fascism.
Trump administration and Democratic leaders on the ground. The Justice Department is now investigating Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. A source confirms this to CNN. Now, the investigation apparently centers on possible obstruction of federal law enforcement. Both Walz and Frey have been fierce.
Well, there is no obstruction with federal law enforcement because ICE is not law enforcement. They aren't. They literally aren't. But anyway.
Critics of the Trump administration's response to the death of Renee Good. Opening an investigation into them is certainly a dramatic escalation in this battle between the White House and these leaders. While the DOJ is now investigating the conduct of Democratic state and local leaders, they made clear they are not investigating the officer who actually shot and killed Renee Good. Now, earlier this week, Deputy Attorney...
Well, evidently they're not investigating the officer who shot Renee Good because they're openly bragging about it.
Attorney General Todd Blanche said in a statement, quote, "There is currently no basis for a criminal civil rights investigation." The DOJ's Civil Rights Division typically launches investigations into law enforcement-related shootings to make sure that officers did not breach the rights of the shooting victim. Blanche's statement came amid a flurry of resignations in the Minnesota U.S. Attorney's Office, as we reported. At least 6 prosecutors left after pressure to focus the probe of the ICE officer shooting onto Good's widow, Becca Good, and the actions of Renee Good herself. When reached for comment about the investigation, Governor Tim Walz did not confirm it to CNN, but accused the federal government of, in his words, weaponizing the justice system and threatening political opponents.
And again, the whole resignation thing burns my gullet. Like, it grinds my gears. Let them fire you. Make them fire you. And then sue them for firing you. Don't resign. Like, if you are in an office like the Department of Justice or some sort of prosecutor's office or something, anything that has any sort of authority to do, and you're feeling pressure from the federal government, make them fire you. Why would you resign and give them not only an out, but a way to quickly replace you with somebody who will? Resignation is cowardice, especially in the face of this authoritarianism.
He called that a dangerous authoritarian tactic. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey just released a statement that reads in part, "This is an obvious attempt to intimidate me for standing up for Minneapolis, our local law enforcement, and our residents against the chaos and danger this administration has brought to our streets." Now, news of the investigation came as Deputy Attorney General Blanche and FBI Director Kash Patel were on the ground in Minneapolis. The FBI director posting these photos to social media along with the caption that read in part, "This team is working 24/7 here, cracking down on violent rioters."
Why is he issuing the most coked out picture of him that he could possibly find? Like, does he think that makes him look resolute or focused? it makes him look like he's on fucking drugs, which he probably is.
And this was the scene today at the Whipple Federal Building, the epicenter of protests in Minneapolis. The building serving as a staging facility for ICE agents, DHS officers, and Customs and Border Protection personnel. This all comes one day after President Trump threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act in Minnesota.
So we keep talking about the Insurrection Act, the Insurrection Act, the Insurrection Act. What is the Insurrection Act of 1807? Oh, this is a Wikipedia, so maybe I already have it. I did already have it. I thought so. All right. The Insurrection Act of 1807, for those of us who don't remember, is the U.S. federal law that empowers the President of the United States to nationally deploy the U.S. Armed Forces and to federalize the National Guard of the individual states in specific circumstances, such as the suppression of civil disorder, of insurrection, and of armed rebellion against the federal government of the United States. Which is hilarious that armed rebellion against the United States is one of the justifications, because the Second Amendment literally exists to justify armed rebellion against the federal government of the United States. So apparently the Insurrection Act is the act that undermines the Second Amendment. So based on those words and on those very obviously not detailed and clearly defined descriptions, I guess he would have the ability to use the Insurrection Act based on that alone. But let's read a little further. Purpose and content. So it empowers the U.S. to call into service the U.S. Armed Forces and the National Guard when requested by a state's legislator or governor, if the legislator cannot be convened to quell an insurrection against the state, to address an insurrection in any state which renders impractical the enforcement of the law, and to address an insurrection, domestic violence, unlawful combination, or conspiracy in any state which results in the deprivation of constitutionally secured rights, and where the state is unable, fails, or refuses to protect said rights. So again, the actual intent of this Insurrection Act is to protect the individual rights and liberties of the citizenry. So if you just read the opening line, it's like, oh, well, I guess he can do that. But if you actually read the fucking law, the governor has to request it. It has to be an honest-to-God insurrection, or it has to be an egregious violation of civil rights or individual rights, and the state refusing to get involved. Now, if I, Samuel Ronan, were currently president, I would invoke the Insurrection Act in Minneapolis against ICE for violating Minneapolis citizens their rights. But granted, if I, Samuel Ronan, were president of the United States, I wouldn't be sending ICE into a city to begin with. So I guess there is that. But when I do assume office, and let me tell you folks, I have an increasing mandate to succeed in my congressional race to then segue into the presidency, that when I am president, if this shit is still happening, which undoubtedly it not only will be happening, but escalated far further than we could ever imagine from this point, that will be probably one of the first things I do, because ICE will probably refuse to stand down, and who knows how much of our military will have capitulated and become complicit in whatever atrocities are being committed on American soil. So, and that's notwithstanding whatever I have done in Congress to try and mitigate these things. But yeah, evidently invoking the Insurrection Act may very well be necessary to deoccupy our cities from federal forces who already don't have the authority to be there in the first place. Just to be clear. Oh, whoops, wrong one. So, Insurrection Act.
Late this morning, he issued a social media post that read in part, "The governor and mayor don't know what to do. They have totally lost control and are currently being rendered useless. If and when I am forced to act, it will be solved quickly and effectively. This afternoon, he was asked what the trigger would be for the Insurrection Act to be used in Minnesota.
It's been used a lot, and if I needed it, I'd use it. I don't think there's any reason right now to use it, but if I needed it, I'd use it. It's very powerful.
Well, for the latest on the investigation.
Well, that was a very insightful response as to when he would actually decide to use it. Application. It has been invoked many times throughout American history, especially in the late 19th and 20th centuries. You know, when we were, in fact, actively in civil war and engaging in atrocities like Jim Crow. And it was used to enforce desegregation. So, again, for the right reasons, ironically enough. As I was saying, I would use the Insurrection Act to dismantle ICE if they refuse to stand down. Well, apparently Eisenhower and Kennedy both had to use it to enforce desegregation, you know, 60 to 70 years after the end of the Civil War. Governors requested and received support following looting in the aftermath of Hurricane Hugo and during the Los Angeles riots, which that would not have been necessarily the right time to use the Insurrection Act, but because the LA riots was because Rodney King's murderers were acquitted. Actually, no, their cases were dismissed. And Los Angeles rightfully was upset about that. And what was the response of LA? It was to target immigrant and POC communities with extreme brutality, i.e., making the situation that much worse. It wasn't used during the George Floyd protests, and shockingly enough, Minneapolis failed to quell that outrage as well, and eventually capitulated to citizen demands because they ran out of tear gas and flashbangs. Again, Minneapolis is not a city to be fucked with. And the fact that this administration is fucking with them as hard as they are now is really gonna blow up in their face, the administration's face. So I don't really understand why they're trying to do it. I guess this was the executive order. And funnily enough, on April 18th, the report ultimately recommended against using the Insurrection Act at the border. Go figure. And I guess all of Wikipedia is saying President Trump. And it's true because in the modern era, it has been pretty much Trump threatening to use it and then being told, maybe you shouldn't. So if he does invoke the Insurrection Act, I can only imagine that this is going to have a dramatic blowback against the administration and any soldier who answers the call. As it should. Honestly, any fucking coward who answers the call to the Insurrection Act, in my opinion, and according to the law, is a traitor to the United States of America. Period. And they should be treated as such, prosecuted as such, and then sentenced as such. Just little context.
Investigation to Governor Walz and Mayor Fry. We start with Caitlin Collins, CNN's chief White House correspondent and anchor of The Source. What more are you learning about this?
What we know so far is that a grand jury has issued subpoenas, so this investigation is real. It is underway. It's definitely in the beginning stages based on what we know. But what we've also learned tonight is we don't believe that Mayor Fry or Governor Walz's offices have actually been served these subpoenas. Neither of them had gotten any notice about this investigation until we had reached out to our sources and then reached out to them for comment on this. And so the scope of it is not entirely clear, but what we do know is that it's around allegations of obstructing federal law enforcement. And that's really just been pointing back to nothing they've done.
Which is a ridiculous notion in any capacity, because if anything, both Walz and that mayor have done nothing to obstruct law enforcement, let alone ICE. They have literally done nothing to stop them running rampant in the city of Minneapolis. Literally nothing. Okay, he called up the National Guard. And what is the National Guard doing? Nothing. They are sitting on the side of the road, freezing their nuts off. That's what the National Guard is doing. Neither of those two have actually lifted a finger to oppose ICE in actual effect. They have spoken out against the administration. But that in no way, form, or fashion actually impedes ICE. So the accusation and investigation of obstruction makes zero fucking sense in the first place from a legal standpoint, which we keep using this word legal like they give a shit. But then again, if they don't give a shit about legality, maybe, and hear me out, they should be fucking removed from office by any and all means necessary, sentenced, prosecuted, or I'm sorry, charged, tried, and sentenced. In that order. Good night. Welcome to the stream and good night at the same time, I guess. But yeah, we we are definitely dealing with significant problems in our country right now, and blaming Democrats for actually getting in the way of this administration is laughable, because that would be the one thing we actually want them to do. So why, like, if the Democrats were actually getting in the way of this administration wouldn't be getting away with what it's doing. That's the point. Democrats are not doing anything remotely to get in the way of this administration, but they are the punching bag. So I'm really not understanding the point of this investigation other than to stir up more controversy.
Physically, but the words that they have said. What we've heard from Mayor Fry, what we've heard from Governor Walz, who have been very outspoken and critical of the federal surge that has been happening in their state. About 3,000 agents are actually there on the ground. Since
it was the mayor who that first night or earlier the week said, get the F out of
and then Governor Tim Walz this week said, encouraged people to record ICE officers and agents as they were carrying out these enforcement operations, and telling them,
which is not an impediment, by the way,
to call 911 if necessary. Now, the administration has been very critical of that, but whether or not that...
Also, have people been calling 911? Is that in any of our videos? I doubt it. No, all of it is the fear and held at gunpoint, removed from home, right? Out of curiosity, then. Out of curiosity. Well, according to 2 days prior. Well, imagine that. What powers do ICE agents have to arrest people? Which is actually wrong. The BBC is wrong. The agents can detain U.S. citizens in limited circumstances, such as if a person interferes with an arrest, assaults an officer, or I suspect the person of being in the U.S. illegally. That's literally not true. That is literally not true. ICE officers and agents are on the streets every day, ICE does not need judicial warrants to make arrests. Okay, so, evidently ICE is just claiming that they can do whatever the fuck they want now. That's awesome. Okay. How about this then? Since when is ICE allowed to exercise police authority without a warrant? So warrant, okay. They've been able to make warrantless arrests since the beginning, according to Wikipedia. LSB 10362, what the fuck does this? I don't know. Okay, this is congress.gov. Okay, I see. Ah, geez. This is one of those types. Okay. So U.S. Code 120.12.6 and 1357. So it's still specifically detention of aliens and powers of immigration officers, powers without a warrant, to interrogate any alien or person believed to be an alien as to his right to be or to remain in the United States. So when was this changed? Am I in the fucking Twilight Zone? So... okay. I guess I'm proving myself wrong, or the law has been changed. Recently, because this was not the case before. This is literally stop and frisk, which is extremely illegal. It's also profiling. This is the legal justification to profile people. I mean, granted, it doesn't say that they have the right to engage with civilians, just people that they may think are an alien. So they are being given full police. I can't imagine that this was the law as like this has to have been recently changed. Fine. Whatever. ICE can just, I guess, unilaterally make arrests and profile people then. I guess they have the right to be domestic terrorists according to this. This powers without a warrant. The fact that these are warrantless powers I mean, that is in violation of due process. Like this right here violates due process. Right there. I believe you're an illegal. Therefore, I'm going to not give you, ignore your right to due process. I think you're an illegal. You are getting arrested. I am going to interrogate you. There is, I mean, I'm reading it, so I can't deny what I'm reading with my own eyes. And this is from the uscode.house.gov, so I mean, I truly feel like this has been rewritten. I truly feel as if this has not been the case. Because all of these sections, or the subsections here, A through 5B, is ridiculous. I guess I have to stop saying that they're not police officers, because according to this, they are. But see, immigration officers, not the ICE agents themselves. So maybe I'm not asking the right questions. See, it does, yeah, it says right here, considerable authority. So 1226A. This is literally the most dystopian shit I've ever read in my life. And even this document up here states that it's detain aliens, not people, like not civilians, not citizens. So I'm still not understanding where they can get away with this. Now, the fact that this is broad, any officer or employee under our regulations have the power without warrant to make arrests for any offense against the U.S. if the offense is committed in the officer's presence, or for any felony cognizable under the laws of the U.S. if the officer or employee has reasonable grounds to believe that the person to be arrested has committed or is committing such a felony. Like, that is... That just seems like that's the asterisk, the little byline that suggests that they can interfere with literally fucking anybody. That needs to be overwritten immediately with extreme prejudice. Son of a bitch. I'm just taking notes like I always do. Legislative rewrite of 8 USC 1357 to, well, I mean, we're getting rid of ICE regardless, right? But in terms of immigration officers and employees, right, the people who would still be dealing with immigration activities, completely repeal section lowercase a. Because what the actual fuck is that? This is straight up fascism. Like, straight up, we have the right to do whatever the fuck we say we want to do. And arrest if we think you're committing a felony. Like, no. Absolutely fucking not. The implication is only against immigrants or illegal aliens. But considering the words believed to be are thrown in there, that is extremely broad. Extremely broad. Holy shit. What a fucking nightmare we are living in.
Warrants an investigation, or that meets the standard of criminal behavior. Obviously, it remains to be seen how the administration is going to prove that.
Governor Walz gave a speech, and you know, which he said, you know, protest peacefully, don't. And the mayor, I think, recently gave a speech in which he said also, you know, don't fall into the trap of, giving them what they want and creating violence. So,
yeah, and the administration has argued that they are helping contribute to this and make it a hostile environment for these ICE agents and federal officers who are still on the ground. We've heard the exact opposite, obviously, from Governor Walz and Mayor Frey, who have said, no, they just don't want all of these federal agents inside their cities. They don't think that they're necessary, and they think they're the ones who are actually making the tensions on the ground worse, which they say were building way before the shooting death by that ICE agent of Renee Good. And so we'll see where this goes. And if they actually get these subpoenas, hopefully learn more about the investigation.
Again, we'll see you on The Source, 9 o'clock. The federal former prosecutor, Jeffrey Toobin, joins me right now, also best-selling author. So, Jeff, has the governor or the mayor done anything, as far as you can tell, to warrant a federal investigation? Or is this just, the thing that this White House would do, whether it's political retribution or just, sowing chaos?
This week began with news that the Justice Department was criminally investigating Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve, basically to coerce him into lowering interest rates. Now the week is ending with news of a criminal investigation of these two Minnesota officials who are trying to protect their city and state. What's going on here is the Justice Department is doing the political bidding of the White House. This has never happened before, even during the Nixon administration, this sort of politicization of the Justice Department. I mean, we've worn out the phrase shocking but not surprising, but that's what's going on with this Justice Department.
Well,
and
Jeff,
it's never happened.
Let me give you
the fact that we have to invoke Nixon just to point out how fucked up this is. And again, it was one tape. Watergate. One tape. 11 minutes. Ended his presidency. He fucking resigned. And we have, as of tomorrow, a full fucking year of state-sponsored terrorism against American citizens, war crimes in the Caribbean, aiding and abetting a genocide in Palestine, betraying our allies in as many ways as you can imagine, weaponizing the criminal justice system and the Department of Justice, ignoring the other two branches of government outright. I mean, and profiting directly off of this presidency. And the big scandal that he's trying to cover up, the fact that he's in the Epstein files and is probably in charge of it at this point. As in, he inherited the child sex trafficking ring from his best friend Epstein after he was killed, even allegedly killed. They say Epstein's dead, but, the mysterious circumstances and the fact that there are chemicals that can make you look dead and then you aren't dead a couple hours later. All I'm saying is the sheer amount of corruption and brutality and authoritarianism and lawlessness from this administration makes Nixon and Watergate look like a minor mistake. Makes Andrew Jackson look like an altar boy. And we're just casually debating this and discussing it, rather than demanding in our millions that he resigns from office every single moment of every single day. I can't even fathom. I cannot fathom.
The pushback that we've had guests on this program, Republican supporters of the White House say, which is, well, look, Justice Department always is under the president. Robert F. Kennedy was the Attorney General.
Sam, they tried to block me on science and technology for teaching the scientific fact that man and dinosaur lived amongst each other. Jeez. True steel. I should deport Maduro back to his country. He came without a visa. See, that's kind of funny because Maduro was captured by the United States. I see what you did there. I think so as well. I remember distinctly that ICE is not allowed to interact with U.S. citizens, but apparently, according to 1357, that might be implied. So that's a huge fucking problem. And then, yeah, the missing audio on the Watergate tapes. Again, and he resigned with the audio that was there, right? Epstein is probably in Israel, which, again, I'm beginning to lean towards that at this point. That does say the missing audio is Michelle Williams expressing her love for Nixon, and he deleted it because she's underage. Which is even crazier because, like, that means the pedophilia ring goes way further back than just the 90s or the Reagan era. Why does small government not mean small enforcement? Well, for two things. One, this isn't small government in the first place, and small enforcement would also not be implied in a small government anyway. Smaller government would be, the idea of smaller government is that it is less influential and intrusive in people's lives. But the purpose of government is to support people's lives, therefore to be a part of people's lives. So the argument for small government disregards the purpose of government in the first place. Obviously, cracking down and subjugating the population, that's very big government. And the fact that so many people are cheering for it is batshit insane. He didn't have any feelings for her. He just used her to cover up Watergate. He just felt it was creepy an underage teen was infatuated with him. Oh, so he wasn't a pedophile. Well, then that would make him be one of the very few presidents who wasn't. Which is a sad thing to say. Did my other screen freeze?
For his brother, when his brother was president, Eric Holder was a close friend of President Obama.
Absolutely. I mean, the Justice Department has always been a cabinet department of the president, but you have to look at what they're doing, not just the relationship. And what you see is criminal investigations. And remember, it's also the failed prosecution of James Comey, the failed prosecution of Tish James, this endless use of the Justice Department against the president's political enemies. It's always true that the Justice Department is part of the executive branch, but what you have to do is look at what they are actually doing, and these investigations seem, as far as anyone can tell, and I'm certainly one of them, have nothing to do with actual violations of the law and everything to do with the political agenda of the president.
Which, I mean, I say it's against the law, but hell, maybe, where did I leave that? Maybe 8 USC 1592 says that the president can go ahead and persecute his political enemies under the law, as long as the enemies are really, really, really bad. Like, because this is bullshit. I'm sorry. This is bullshit. This whole Section A is fucked up beyond belief. Okay. Can the president persecute his political enemies through the DOJ? Which is funny because even AI is saying it's abuse of power. And I'm not even seeing, like, I don't see any of the legalese, right? Quora, Facebook, Stanford, Politics, Stack Exchange, Wikipedia. Although this is kind of funny. It's its own Wikipedia article. Targeting of political opponents and civil society under the second Trump administration. Like, it got its own fucking article. So, I mean, is there anything in here that's suggesting that this can't be done? Nope, it's just highlighting that it is being done. Okay, where's the constitutional crisis? Where? I mean, we know I just want to see the legalese behind it, right? Okay, that wasn't quite what I was looking for. Dual state. Oh my God. The dual state is a model in which the functioning of a state is divided into a normative state, which operates according to set rules and regulations, and a prerogative state, which exercises unlimited arbitrariness and violence unchecked by any legal guarantees. The term was coined by Ernst Fraenkel to describe the functioning of the Nazi state, and especially law in Nazi Germany, which he described in his 1941 book, The Dual State, A Contribution to the Theory of Dictatorship. So, legal experts are once again unilaterally comparing him to Nazi Germany. In 2025, and changes in the way the U.S. government operated during the first year of Trump's second term, some began to argue that the United States was beginning to resemble a dual state. The idea received increased attention after Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson cited the dual state in a dissenting opinion on Trump versus the Casa case. I think we can add this to the Wikipedia tab. Good grief. It's like, okay. I'm trying to, like, why aren't they talking about the laws that are, you know, against it? Okay, what about these executive orders? Is there the language here? What's the actual language? So, ending the weaponization of the federal government. It is the policy of the U.S. to identify and take appropriate action to correct past misconduct by the federal government related to the weaponization of law enforcement and the weaponization of the intelligence community. You mean like he's currently doing with ICE in Minneapolis? He's violating his own executive order. Jesus fucking Christ. Oh my God. There will be, I mean, we're not going to get very far in the stream if we keep trying to analyze the real legal aspects of everything that he's doing. But I just want to point out, I just want to highlight real fast that not only is he signing executive orders, he then contradicts them. Not only is he persecuting his enemies, he's then contradicting the very reasons why he went after them in the first place, which is oversight and oppression, right? It's just... You don't legislate an authoritarian regime away. You just don't legislate them out of office. You also don't vote them out of office, right? What you do is you force them out of office. The 25th Amendment, impeachment, massive, massive, massive civil unrest and uprising, right? But even with legislation and voting, right? If vote blue no matter who worked, right? Let's say every single congressperson in the House of Representatives got replaced by a Democrat. And every single establishment Democrat got replaced by a progressive Democrat. And the 33 senators that are up for election this year got replaced by Democrats, right? And let's just say progressive Democrats at that. So we have 435 House of Reps that are progressive and 33 senators that are progressive. Okay? And all of them immediately file articles of impeachment, dismantling ICE, this, that, and the other. This administration has already ignored universal rulings by the Supreme Court. This administration has already ignored legislation that was passed by this Congress. Never mind a dream come true, just leftist agenda, right? He ignored this Congress that demanded he release the Epstein files, and this Congress is doing nothing about it. So, to the point that you can't legislate yourself out of authoritarianism, if you attempt to legislate your way out of authoritarianism and you are unwilling to hold the administration accountable, then you have ultimately failed in your endeavor, which means the legislation isn't the issue, right? That's why you can't legislate the authoritarianism away, right? Because the legislation is just fucking words. And even if the words say you will suffer egregious consequences, if you don't follow through on carrying out those egregious consequences, it is irrelevant. Which goes back to the point that you don't get rid of authoritarianism by following the rules, by playing nice, by doing things the civil way. You force them out of office once they break the law, refuse to resign or step down, and then you drag them out of office by their fucking hair. Or neck, or whatever else. In furtherance of the law, of course, right? They failed to comply with the Epstein, heads should roll. If we pass legislation to stop this ICE stuff and he continues doing it, head should roll. Ignoring SCOTUS, head should roll. It's the heads rolling part, following through on the criminal action that occurred and arresting them. That isn't what's happening. That is how you remove authoritarians from power. You arrest them, you drag them out of their places of power, then you charge them, try them, and sentence them accordingly. So, as your future congressman and next president, I will absolutely be forcing as much of my power and authority and sway as I can into ensuring accountability. Accountability of this administration and the cabinet. Right? Especially the cabinet, I guess. But when I say the administration, I guess I'm gently saying Trump. But I mean anybody involved with him and himself personally needs to be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law possible. And considering the crimes that they are committing are capital crimes, treason, corruption, fucking kidnapping a foreign head of state, allowing a foreign country to infiltrate our government and our institutions and dictate the terms to us. Like, treason barely begins to cover the crimes of this administration. And yes, treason is a capital crime, so the punishment is... And yes, I will be advocating for that day one of my time in Congress, and I will be carrying it out day one of my day in office as president. January 21st, 2029. Okay.
Sent a warning out to some of the agents there in Minneapolis.
I did.
Reminding them of Derek Chauvin, of course, the man convicted of murdering George Floyd back in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, the point I wanted to make was, you know, you're acting with impunity. You're acting like you're above the law, but you're not immune to criminal laws. You can be prosecuted just like Derek Chauvin was. And the way I tried to make the point in a very pointed way was to say, you know, some of y'all could end up being cellmates with Derek Chauvin if you're not careful. So there will be accountability. If these guys don't do the investigations, it will still be done. Feds will do it after the Trump administration is gone, or state.
Bruh, this is what I'm talking about with Democrats being useless pieces of garbage. There will be investigations, maybe after the Trump administration is gone. So we're gonna wait 3 fucking years to prosecute Nazis and domestic terrorists? What the fuck are you smoking? Speaking of not knowing your own checks and balances, Sam, I was telling Anna I was arguing with an idiot who said Pelosi was the one who had the power to secure the House when it's actually the Sergeant at Arms. No matter how many times I tried saying that, he was adamant calling me the R word and other crap like that. Yeah, I mean, people do not know their rights or the laws, or the way to defend themselves, or, right? And on top of that, revel in their ignorance. I'm telling you, my first 100 days are going to have so many criminal prosecutions. It's damn near going to be a 100-day long celebration and holiday as all of these war criminals are finally held to justice. And yes, we'll go as far back as the Reagan administration, as far back as we can. We will posthumously charge and try and sentence these fuckers if we have to. Because what we are not going to allow happen is this shit. The shit that is currently happening in America and across the globe due to this administration. We're really not going to do that. Absolutely. The fact that Nixon got away with his resignation and that was it is despicable. That motherfucker should have been sentenced and thrown in prison. We'll exhume his fucking corpse and throw it in a goddamn jail cell if we have to. Like, I'm not even joking about that.
Locals can do it now.
Is that your same message to ICE agents, not just in Minneapolis, but across the
country?
Here?
That's right. That's right. They are subject to the laws, and they'll be held accountable sooner or later.
Well, many of the
Well, the fact that that guy was a congressman and has the ability and the authority to, I don't know, hold hearings, pass legislation, conduct investigations himself, and he's talking about sooner or later rather than I am immediately engaging in these investigations is extremely telling how fucking useless he is as a congressman.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark Ruley, Police Chief of the City of Brooklyn Park. Behind me is a bunch of amazing police chiefs that are here in support of a very short but very important message that we want to share with you. What you won't hear from any of us today is rhetoric of abolish ICE or that there shouldn't be immigration enforcement.
Because you're fucking stupid, cowardly pieces of shit, and your profession as it stands should also be abolished. Abolish the police. Abolish ICE.
The truth is, immigration enforcement is necessary for our national security and for local security. But how it's done is extremely important. In fact, we have a long history of working exceptionally well with our federal partners, including ICE agents, and we have seen the best of them perform their job extremely well in the past. With that said, recently, as the last 2 weeks, we, as law enforcement community, have been receiving endless complaints about civil rights violations in our streets from U.S. citizens. What we're hearing is they're being stopped in traffic stops or on the street with no cause and being forced to demand paperwork to determine if they are here legally.
I mean, the fact that we are literally at the stop and show me your paper stage of fascism, and literally, nobody wants to make the comparisons. Nobody. Literally, no. We have not watched a single video. We haven't seen a single reporter or journalist say, you know, there was a very famous point in time in U.S., well, I guess it wasn't specifically U.S. history, but America was certainly part of that history. There was a very specific time in world history in which a group of people demanded, without any provocation or justification, to stop and show me your papers. Nobody, not one person has said that. I don't even think Democracy Now! Has made that connection in their posts or their reporting. Like, literally. Stop and show me your papers. So there's, oh my God, this is worse. So hold on a second. There have been show me your papers laws for over a decade now. Fantastic. A state bill in Arizona required state law enforcement ask those deemed suspicious of being undocumented to present proof of legal immigration status during routine traffic stops. It also made it a misdemeanor to be caught without those papers, which it's already a misdemeanor. A misdemeanor to be an undocumented migrant to begin with. Unfucking believable. It was also struck down in 2012. So, we've actually been Nazi Germany for quite some time. Just maybe not broadly. Wonderful. But also, even now, if you search for stop and show me your papers on Google, it's about America. Oh, it was popularized from 1942 Casablanca. So, everything else, right? Everything else doesn't have anything to do with Hitler or the Nazis. Why would I want personalized results? Did the Nazis invoke stop and show me your papers? One result. You think maybe? You think maybe they're trying to hide something? I can't even make this shit up. Well, I mean, there's your Nazi comparisons, at least. The Nuremberg race laws. I decide who is a Jew. I decide who is, you know, an immigrant, an illegal. We should deport you too, citizen, for disagreeing with Trump. Were fabricated on a whim. Just trying to see if there was any, I guess this isn't going to talk about that. Okay, here we go. Such public identification and othering undoubtedly created the preconditions for mass murder by taking all mental processes of evaluation of individual distinction out of the equation for anyone interacting with Jewish people in Germany. Initially rounding up Jews and segregating them in squalid ghettos throughout Poland. I mean, read this article. We are doing this in America. Like, it's... But fine. The internet isn't confirming whether or not the Nazis went up to Jewish people and said, show me your papers. Because apparently that's too close for comfort for Google. Like, the fact that it didn't even show up. Oh my goodness.
As this went on over the past 2 weeks, we started hearing from our police officers the same complaints as they fell victim to this while off duty. Every one of these individuals is a person of color who has had this happen to them. In Brooklyn Park, one particular officer that shared her story with me was stopped as she passed ICE going down the roadway. When they boxed her in, they demanded her paperwork, of which she's a U.S. citizen and clearly would not have any paperwork. When she became concerned about the rhetoric and the way she was being treated, she pulled out her phone. In an attempt to record the incident, the phone was knocked out of her hands, prevented her from recording it.
I mean, honestly, fuck around and find out. You have been, like, seriously. I am not going to call for the abolishment of ICE, but they are terrorizing my brown and black officers. This fucking, oh my, I just... Like, it is literally going to take ICE harassing him specifically off duty, where he happens to be driving past a protest or some activity. Like, and at the rate ICE is going with spreading across the city, there is every real possibility this guy encounters ICE accidentally, and then they're going to tear gas and flashbang him. And then what is he going to say? Well, I still don't think ICE should be abolished, but they are clearly getting out of pocket when I'm getting tear gassed and flashbanged. Like, the fucking cognitive dissonance is ridiculous.
The officer had their guns drawn during this interaction. And after the officer became so concerned, they were forced to identify themselves as a Brooklyn Park police officer in hopes of slowing the incident and de-escalating the incident down.
Oh, so wait, police do have the ability to de-escalate when their own fucking lives are in danger, apparently.
The agents then immediately left after hearing this, making no other comments, no other apologies, just got in their vehicles and left.
Well, there you go, folks. All you got to do is claim you're a police officer and they'll leave you the fuck alone. Here's a counter protest suggestion. Every single protester is now a police officer if they're ever encountered swarmed by ICE. Well, what about being getting charged with impersonating an officer? Well, if it keeps you alive, getting a civil fine, I think, would be much better, much gooder. And if you have any sort of halfway decent lawyer that's going to say, this person clearly impersonated an officer to save their lives, which has been clearly shown to be at risk when in dealing with ICE officers or ICE agents.
I wish I could tell you that this was an isolated incident. In fact, many of the chiefs standing behind me have similar incidents with their off-duty officers. This isn't just important because it happened to off-duty police officers, but what it did do is we know that our officers know what the Constitution is, they know what right and wrong is, and they...
So wait a minute. These officers do know the Constitution and do know the rights of individuals and still go out of their way to violate citizens' rights during arrests all the fucking time, to include Derek Chauvin when he murdered George fucking Floyd. So the officers do have a working knowledge of the law and abuse it anyway. Do you not hear, like, do you not see the contradictions here? It's happening to us now. Now we're upset and we're calling it out. But the way we conduct business is still atrocious. And we're not going to acknowledge that?
They know when people are being targeted, and that's what they were. If it is happening to our officers, it pains me to think of how many of our community members are falling victim to this every day. It has to stop. This behavior erodes the trust that these police chiefs have worked tirelessly for the last 5 years and theoretically the last 60 years to stop this exact behavior from happening. Now, I want to be really clear. I've called lots of other ICE agents and HSI agents and have talked to a lot of individuals about this. This is not widespread. This is a small group of agents within the surge in the metro area that are performing or acting this way.
Really? Because I have chosen not to go over the dozen videos of a dozen separate incidents occurring at around the same time across the city of Minneapolis. These are not, this fucking, oh my God. This is why I hate police. This is literally why I hate cops. I despise law enforcement in its current form, because even when they are trying to be on the right side of history, they can't help but protect their own self-interests of allowing their extrajudicial authorities from being challenged or eroded. And it's just like the Democrats not wanting to stop fascism. Why? Sorry, I keep cleaning my glasses and they keep getting dirtier. Democrats don't want to actually stop Trump. They want to be Trump the next time around. This cop doesn't want to stop ICE. He wants to have the same authorities and lack of accountability as ICE. But because ICE is targeting his people, he has to speak out about it. So give me a second. I can barely see the screen. Okay, let's listen to more propaganda while we're at it.
As a matter of fact, as rumors of this had spread, I've received phone calls from ICE agents and HSI agents indicating this is not how they act, this is not what they do. Regardless, we're calling to action that we have more supervision over the surge, that this type of civil rights violations have to stop.
I don't know, maybe, and hear me out. You're the police chief, right? You're the police chief, right? So presumably you're in charge of several hundred police officers in your city under your direct command, yeah? Arrest the agents who are terrorizing civilians. We need more supervisory oversight and the permission to do so. Mon Dieu. I wasn't aware that you need permission to oversee the actions of others in your city. Well, local police is trumped by federal police. Yeah, well, the federal police has credible accusations of misconduct against them. Then your jurisdiction then becomes superior, does it not? Fascism. Love it. Okay.
To use the word unsettling one more.
Again, you know shit is fucked up when Joe Rogan is even calling it out. Joe Rogan, whose platform literally allowed Trump to get into the office in the first place. Both times.
Our time, let's go ahead and roll this clip of Joe Rogan, who had Rand Paul on for a very interesting edition of the Joe Rogan Experience, himself expressing this sentiment of being unsettled about what he has seen from ICE. And remember, obviously, Rand Paul is libertarian. He's a Republican member of Congress, but he comes from the libertarian branch of the Republican Party and the broader conservative movement. So questions about ICE weigh heavily on the libertarian mind always, and have for a long time. How did Rand Paul respond to Rogan? Let's take a look.
You don't want militarized people in the streets just roaming around, snatching people up, many of which turn out to actually be U.S. citizens that just don't have their papers on them. Are we really going to be the Gestapo? Where's your papers? Is that what we've come to? It's also very ugly to watch someone shoot a U.S. citizen, especially a woman, in the face.
Okay. That right there. Why all of this emphasis on a U.S. citizen? Oh, we don't care if they're shooting brown people or black people in the face, because guess what, motherfucker? We have been watching cops murder people of color for decades, centuries even. But that are American citizens, no less. But you have to emphasize that they are citizens, and a woman at that. This is the shit. This is that divisive rhetoric, and it's so ingrained in his brain, he can't help himself. It's disgusting.
Right. Where it's like, I'm not that guy. I don't know what he thought. And again, this is a guy who had almost been run over, but it just looked horrific to me. I mean, when people say it's justifiable because the car hit him, it seemed like she was kind of turning the car away.
I think you could make an argument when you're working right along the border or at night with large groups that there's a lawlessness to the cartels, that hiding the identity.
Motherfucker, what do you know about the cartels?
Of ICE along the border. It's a little harder to make the argument, and I saw this image in a courthouse in Chicago where it's a big elevator and the ICE agents all have masks on and they're arresting people, and it's all women and children in a big elevator in a courthouse. It's like, really? I don't think you really need to be wearing a mask.
Well, they're worried about being doxxed, and they're finding that happening.
But our local police have to do that, and they don't wear masks. You see what I mean? The local police go to the courthouse to arrest somebody, or on the bright lights of the city during the day.
But again, the local police have to state their name and badge number. The local police have always been here.
Right.
The ICE element is completely new.
Right. I'm saying,
or at least at this scale.
I'm saying that for most of the regular arrests, you probably don't need to have them wearing masks. That's what I'm saying.
Zero. There are zero arrests in which masks are justifiable, let alone not identifying yourself. Because if you're wearing a mask and not identifying yourself, I don't know if this video is on here or not. I know we have, there should be videos on it. There is evidence of protesters in Minneapolis dressing up as ICE agents, i.e. wearing masks, getting a plate carrier, wearing blue jeans, mingling, and then spreading chaos and discord by saying they're not real and causing strife and then escaping. Which means, clearly, anybody could be a fucking ICE agent until they open their mouth. Literally. So, anybody... Look, I will prove. This I know for a fact. Look. Look. I can buy this for $10 right now. Oh, sorry. I can buy a police patch right fucking now for $10. I could buy it right now. And I could get a fucking discount. Well, you can't see that. I could buy this police patch right fucking now. Right now. Buy a plate carrier, put it on, wear a mask, and start infiltrating ICE if I really wanted to. Or, as some instigators are doing, terrorizing communities, and as other other instigators are doing, are committing robberies against immigrants. It is $10. How much is a plate carrier? As low as $69. Okay. So LA police gear once again. So hold up. Let's see. We'll add to cart because everybody's doing green lately. Oh look! I can just buy a Velcro police for $6 fucking. I could literally get Ontario, Pomona, Burbank, San Bernardino patches. Are you fucking serious? Okay, 9 pocket stretch jeans. Add to cart. Add to cart. Shut the fuck up. 6 inches by 2. It's a patch. I think you actually have to, Okay, it didn't add the pants to cart. Okay, I'm a bit fat, so we're gonna do a size 40. The regular blue inseam, I think I'm a 32. I don't fucking know. Add to cart. Okay. What else does the police ICE look like? Category. Tactical clothing. No, I don't think we need to care about that. Okay, police. ICE. Well, thank God there aren't showing ICE pack. Oh, look, I can buy, De Stiefel. Those look pretty fucking cool. Tundra Forces Tactical Boot. Why not? Size 11, why not? Okay. What else? A shovel. A police hat. Of course we want a police hat. Oh, I'm sorry. We could get it in police or sheriff. But let's do police. Because that's what they really like doing. I don't fucking know what that was all about. I can get my gas mask. Let's see. Mask, pouch. Tactical black. What else? These must be the canisters? Oh no. Oh, earplugs for when they use. Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely want these. Yeah. Abso-fucking-lutely. Small? Well, I don't think I'm a small ear, but fuck it. So now when I'm shooting civilians, I don't have to hear it. Gas mask with drinking system. I don't know. I guess we could do a little bit of research and figure that one out, I guess. mask. Oh, the gator. The gator. Right here, the gator. Now, one of these filters actually goes to our gas mask. I don't know which one. Oh, they're out of them. Imagine that. Ooh, half mask. Those are kind of cool, right? Oh, wait, we're out of stock. Oh, all of these are out of stock? Lame. So, you can almost get everything you need from LAP gear right fucking now. And, you can't see this, so, for $733.01, you can get the plate care. Oh, you can't, you know. There we go. Oh, and now I can do my office again. So, for $733, you can get a plate carrier. You can get a police ID patch. You can get the pants, the fancy pants. You can get the boots, the Nazi Goose Stepper 9000. You can get a police hat. You can get a safety gas mask. You can get the mask pouch, which is kind of cool, and you can get your earbuds, which I guess technically you don't need that. I guess technically we don't need the gas masks or the earbuds, right? Because not all of the ICE agents are using gas. But this is the uniform. And this is all it takes. You can get the police tab and the police hat, your tactical vest, boots and shoes, and be an ICE agent. And nobody would fucking know the difference. Literally.
Hello? Is this thing on?
Hello? Like, if you don't have to identify yourself, if you can arrest somebody for asking you to identify yourself, and the thing that your fellow ICE agents are looking for is this vest and the police tape on it, literally anybody could be masquerading as an ICE agent, which, yes, is an absolute threat to public safety, let alone national security. So, if we're seriously not going to enforce ICE needing to identify themselves and have their faces revealed and carrying badges and shit, for $382, I too could become an ICE agent. That's scary as fuck. And this badge, I think, is Velcro, this one. Identification patch for Molly tactical vests with loop ID panels. And it has happened already. That's right, Anna. It absolutely has. And it's this easy. It's literally $10 to get this patch. So, okay, I don't need this patch. So, gonna update. And honestly, my work boots kind of already fit that description. And I already have blue jeans. So realistically, if I, Samuel Ronan, wanted to infiltrate ICE, it would cost me $82.17 plus $9.95. Because I own a pair of blue jeans and I own a pair of work boots already. But I obviously don't have police tape. That is fucking disturbing that for less than $100, I could infiltrate one of the largest domestic terror organizations on Earth, let alone America.
So Rand Paul offered some defense of ICE, but what you heard him saying in that clip was right, as Rogan was talking about the optics of watching a woman be shot in the face. And I don't mean just the optics of that for the administration politically, but what that does viscerally to people to watch a woman be shot in the face. And that's where you're seeing this polling come from. We can put the next element up on the screen. This is a YouGov poll from January 9th through 12th. So that was conducted from last Friday to this Monday. So in the wake of what happened to Renee Good, and you see a net, abolishing ICE has received net positive support in this poll. Support for abolishing ICE is at 46%. Opposition is at 43%. I would imagine that's in the margin of error. So either way, it's basically split. And again, Ryan, this is what we said earlier in the show. That's what happened in the first Trump administration. I mean, not at this level, of course, and immigration enforcement wasn't at this level, but the numbers were going exactly in this direction. And it's why Democrats hopped on politically the Abolish ICE train, and why people like AOC and other squad members were getting a lot of traction with the Abolish ICE movement at the time. And now the public is...
And did absolutely nothing. They raised funding during the Biden administration. They could have abolished ICE. He actually had a blue Congress. He didn't have a blue Supreme Court. But he could have abolished ICE. And didn't. Didn't even try. They raised fucking funding for ICE.
Like really moving along with it.
Not according to Third Way, which is the kind of like centrist Democratic news organization. Bad timing for them for this memo that they put out. You can put this next element up. They said they implored Democrats do not use the term abolish ICE. Quote, the impulse is emotional. The slogan is simple, but politically it is lethal. And we had Chris Van Hollen on.
And then you have the Democrat think tanks telling Democrats to be as spineless as fucking possible, in addition to not actually legislating against this administration. What the fuck?
This. He was sort of almost there, but what he was saying, you don't want to imply that some of the necessary functions that are carried out by ICE would also be abolished. And I don't think, and some people want that to be the case, but that's not what most people mean when they say abolish ICE. When I say abolish ICE, I mean it is a rogue, ungovernable agency. And when you have a government, you need everything in it to be responsive to the government and to the people. Like you can't have rogue agencies. You can't. Like that's antithetical to the notion of self-government. And these guys were already rogue in 2019, 2020. 50% of their officers have been hired in like the last year.
They're not rogue from this administration. I mean, they're very, very responsive.
Well, we'll see.
To the duly elected president right now.
We'll see. Like, we'll see what happens if they try to. You always think that. You always think that your attack dog is under control. Mm-hmm. That maybe they are. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's a very good point.
I just mean right now.
Right. That's a very.
You know, and that is actually not something that I have brought up in any of these streams, but Ryan actually does bring up a very valid point. ICE is 100% acting within the authority, guidance, and agenda of this administration, whether directly because Trump wants it, or because Kristi Noem is a sycophant, or maybe because Stephen Miller is happy that he finally gets to exercise his Nazi wet dream fantasies. But if Trump or somebody else decides to actually hold ICE accountable, there really isn't that much stopping ICE agents from ignoring that and Kristi Noem and Stephen Miller going rogue together against whatever opposition they face, including if it is Trump. He's absolutely right. The SS gained so much power in Nazi Germany in such a short amount of time that even Nazi officials who were alongside Hitler himself began to fear for their lives and safety because of the SS cult-like mentality and their extremism. So, fair point. If we don't do anything about ICE sooner than later, ICE could be its own thing, and then we have an even bigger problem.
Very good point. I wonder if the administration wanted to change tactics, if they could get them under control. I don't know. Maybe they could. Could a Democratic government? I highly doubt it.
I think that's a great point. But that's why.
Well, and the weird thing is, like, under Biden and Obama, right, the ICE was out of pocket, right, on social media and all that. But they weren't being carte blanche to terrorize people in the streets. Now that they've been given carte blanche to terrorize people in the streets, if a Democratic, like a blue party administration were to take the seat, would that carte blanche behavior be curbed or curtailed? And I agree. I doubt that they would respect it. At this point, I definitely do. But we're not going to get a Democratic president. We're going to get me, and I am not a Democrat. I'm not really much of a Republican either. I am me. I am an American. I am going to be an American president. Fuck the two-party system. And if ICE wants to resist being held accountable and dismantled, well, there are tools at my disposal, and I'm sure there are plenty of patriots in the federal law enforcement programs and the military that would be more than willing to regain their honor and overcome the disgrace that they have endured for the past 4 years.
Again, like libertarians, and we'll ask Thomas Massey about this later in the show, and if you want all these videos, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We've learned lately that if you haven't subscribed yet, it helps us a lot to subscribe on the channel itself, not even a premium subscription. Just hit subscribe on the channel so you see the videos in your feed or your podcast network, because we do have Thomas Massey coming up later on today's show, and I'm very curious to get his take on this, because Rand Paul, I don't know, I heard him kind of conflicted. And I think a lot of people are conflicted, but not like this ICE polling from YouGov that we just put up on the screen is pretty interesting, because what you see among independents, so people who describe themselves as moderates, are almost 45% in the strongly support or somewhat support category when it comes to abolishing ICE. Independents, 47%. So independents and moderates, self-described independents and moderates, are almost at a 50-50 split on support or opposition to abolishing.
Which is disturbing, right? Hey, ICE is literally murdering people in broad daylight in their car when they had nothing to do with anything in that situation. Well, I don't know. I just, I guess sometimes innocent people get murdered in broad daylight. I mean, I don't know. Maybe give them better training or something. Like, you're a piece of shit. I'm sorry. If you can see a headline that says person murdered in broad daylight, and your first instinct is to be like, well, who's in the wrong? You're a piece of shit. I'm sorry. Because guess what? Even criminals do not deserve to be murdered before they have their day in court. Because we are a nation of laws. All right, we're barely halfway through this list. But let's cover Stephen Miller, the wannabe Nazi.
Back here in the United States, President Trump had said one protester death is too many in Iran. Maybe that's not the case here in the United States. Stephen Miller came out forcefully, they call him, Prime Minister or whatever, Prime Minister Stephen Miller came out forcefully in defense of the absolute immunity of DHS officials. Let's roll his...
So, rather than just de facto immunity, i.e. not prosecuting them and not holding them accountable, he wants it legislated that ICE has full immunity for their actions, to include their atrocities. Let's hear it from the Nazi himself.
An aggressive defense of them.
to all ICE officers, you have federal immunity in the conduct of your duties. And anybody who lays a hand on you or tries to stop you or tries to obstruct you is committing a felony. You have immunity to perform your duties, and no one, no city official, no state official, no illegal alien, no leftist agitator or domestic insurrectionist can prevent you from fulfilling your legal obligations and duties. And
So, News Nation, I'd rather it be like from... Not that CNN is any better, but... Here we go. Ending Qualified Immunity for ICE Agents Act, which was introduced in August. Okay. So they have qualified immunity, which is, it is a degree of immunity, but certainly not absolute immunity. Let's see if this covers it a bit more. Federal officials have consistently... hold up. There are relatively few court decisions addressing these issues, making the law muddled and unsettled in many areas, which is ridiculous because extrajudicially murdering civilians is just... I mean, that violates due process, right? So that's a crime, and that's not immunity. This doesn't tell us a goddamn thing. I guess maybe we need to look up qualified immunity. Qualified immunity, which shields them from civil liability unless they violate clearly established statutory or constitutional rights. Ironic, considering they are clearly violating constitutional rights. So that is qualified immunity, which in of itself is far and above what any agency should have. Like, it basically is a free hall pass for 99% of the activities police officers and agents can get away with. Even if it is clearly a crime, they can say, well, qualified immunity, and then people are like, oh, yeah, qualified immunity. It's a get it out of jail free card, and that needs to be absolutely removed. And see, the necessary and proper clause, they're so broad and gray and constantly defined to protect and defend the piece of shit that is defending themselves. So, yeah. Anywho.
The Department of Justice has made clear that if officials cross that line into obstruction, into criminal conspiracy against the United States or against ICE officers, then they will face justice.
Okay, well, that is certainly one way to respond to the kind of national outrage at the killing of Renee Good, which new polls show Democrats obviously overwhelmingly believe it was an improper illegal shoot. Independents overwhelmingly believe that. And only, I think, what was it? I think I saw two polls, but roughly 60% of Republicans said that it was appropriate. So that's, you got a majority, even a supermajority.
What the fuck? 60% of Republicans thought it was okay to murder somebody in cold blood in broad daylight?
Majority of, almost a supermajority of Republicans, but still only 60 is awfully low to if you're going to then come out this aggressively and say, ICE agents, if you're watching this, you have complete immunity to do whatever you're doing out there in the streets.
Overall, it's been broken down into like roughly, this is, again, it's an approximation, but you're seeing like a third of people who.
Interesting, right? A third of Nazi Germany was of people fully supporting Hitler, a third who were opposed, and a third who didn't give a shit. Huh.
Who say absolutely not. Yes, it was supportive, and people who are kind of up in the air. And polls, but to Ryan's point, when you break that down by partisanship, independence, not great for the administration, serious for the administration, and for Republicans that are up in the midterms. And obviously helpful to Democrats that are using this energy politically. But the politics aside, I do want to make a point, because you and I and Crystal and Sagar have disagreed on the circumstances of the Good killing, and people can go watch last Friday's show to see more of that. But even so, what Stephen Miller just said is arguably dangerous for the ICE agents themselves, because he said absolute federal immunity, and he said it with such gusto.
Right.
It is technically
you might
correct.
believe it to be true.
Well, I mean, it's technically correct because he said federal, and they are currently in charge of the federal government, meaning that it is almost a 0% chance.
Right, he'll pardon you, basically.
Right. States can prosecute in these cases. They are doing it in the Renee Good case, in fact. And the federal government appears to be making that work harder and is intentionally not cooperating with the state investigation, but saying absolute federal immunity as though you are covered, which is the clear implication of what Stephen Miller just said. It's dangerous for reasons that you and I would agree on, which is that you have a lot of new ICE officers out in the streets with the bravado coming from the administration and actual threats. You are asking for danger. And secondly, dangerous, but then potentially as well, because people have this overconfidence that could be literally dangerous for protesters and the agents themselves by stoking the flames, and then could be legally dangerous for the officers who can be prosecuted by the states.
That's a very good point. And so when we have a
well, that is the good thing, at least, is that even if the federal government won't hold them accountable, the states can. But that's the problem, ain't it? If the states ain't willing, or only picking and choosing the most obvious ones to go after, then it's still not accountability. Hence, police should be arresting ICE agents wherever they are. Because they are literally committing crimes as they engage in activities. And I get it, we went over 1357, where apparently they can do whatever the fuck they want law, but I mean, realistically, they can do whatever the fuck they want, but the Constitution still requires them to respect due process, which then would require a warrant. I'm just going and saying that police and state governments should be going out of their way to put a kibosh on ICE. Well, that's the point, right? That is literally the point that I was making. Why isn't Minnesota going after Ross, right? Well, because we don't want to stir up the Trump administration. They're already stirred up, and they're already coming for you. Not resisting them is making them coming after you easier. Cowardice and complacency is the defining characteristics of the opposition movement in this country, being led by the Democrats, which isn't obviously the actual opposition movement. The real opposition movement is in the streets of Minneapolis by the citizens of Minneapolis, right? And of course, LA, New York, and all that, right? The people actively doing the resistance are the opposition. But the Democrats fancy themselves as the opposition leaders, and obviously they leave a shit ton to be desired because of that aforementioned cowardice. The bald-headed mutant strikes again. Yeah, among many, many other things that we could say about him.
My message as governor to ICE agents is this. If you harm a single Californian, hire the best lawyer you can afford, because I will bring you to justice. I will use every power in the state to bring you to justice. I will take your driver's license away if you operate in our state with a mask and unidentified.
They are already... Okay, if they're going to operate in your state without a mask and unidentified, and you take away their license, why would they give a fuck? Okay, I'm still not wearing I'm still wearing a mask, and I'm still not identifying myself. I'm now not legally allowed to drive. Oh well. Like, this is... And the crowd is cheering. And he has this shit-eating grin on his face like he just did and said something. The only effective measure of using the law against ICE is ordering the law enforcement to arrest ICE and getting them off the streets and charging them for domestic terrorism. Period. Dot. End of story. Taking their license and wagging your finger, that's nothing. Right, empty platitudes. And Simply Steve with the left field, Minnesota is filing state charges, so that is outstanding news. Okay, I mean, we did not get very far. We got halfway through. So let's do some mildly good news, yeah?
And some big news out of Cape Canaveral, like bigger than the Statue of Liberty big, because this massive SLS rocket bound to take humans all the way beyond the moon and slingshot back, it is about to start rolling down the launch site, literally like this fast, less than a mile an hour, 4 miles to go. But take a look at this. Here it is in real life. This is the massive 322-foot SLS, or Space Launch System, fully stacked up, getting ready for its final checks. On the tippity top there, boom, that is the Orion capsule inside that will take 4 humans further than we have ever been since the 1970s. Hopefully a flyby around the moon, the scenic route, getting ready to make sure everything is good to go to land on it in Artemis 3 and then get to work building a moon base, hopefully and beyond. The timeline right now, well, things are looking pretty good for the SLS to roll out tomorrow, maybe launch as soon as February 6th, February 7th. We'll see. Joining us now is astronaut Jose Hernandez.
Okay. What? So we're shooting a giant fucking rocket around the moon to look at it. And then we're going to send people to the moon for the first time in, what, 60 years? To start building a moon base, which violates I don't know how many international treaties in the first place. I mean, I guess it's good news in that it's science. Maybe I'm just too jaded that I can't even enjoy just science news videos, huh?
Jose, this is going to be quite the year for space here. First things first, and I ask with the utmost respect for everything that has gone into putting humans into space. But 1972, that was the last time we were on the moon. This mission is a moon flyby. What's taken us so long to come back?
Well, first of all, Gotti, I'm not sure if you're more excited or I'm more excited, because 1972, the very last time we went to the moon, I was 10 years old, and that's what inspired me to want to be an astronaut. So it's very special to me. Now, your question is, why?
Anna had already graduated college in 1972.
Why did we wait over 50 years to go back to the moon? Well, the first time we went to the moon, it was because of political reasons. We wanted to beat the Russians to the surface of the moon, which we did. But once we got there, our technology wasn't advanced enough that all we can do is collect rocks and dirt samples and come back. The next 50 years, we focused on low Earth orbit, studying our planet. And now our technology has moved enough that it makes sense for us to go back to the surface of the moon. And that's what we're doing, because we're going to set up a lunar base, retire the International Space Station, and develop technologies and test technology on the surface of the moon that's going to allow us to go to Mars and beyond. And that is very exciting.
So excited.
You know, it's going to be extremely infuriating that the Trump administration might be able to put a feather in its cap regarding the moon. A moon landing. But you know what? Like, that's the shitty thing too, right? Because this administration is committing atrocities at home and abroad but then it's also pursuing another moon landing. Like, that is so, like, off of left field. Like, that doesn't even make sense, right? Like, that is just so completely, we have Nazis, we have domestic terrorism, we're kidnapping foreign heads of state, we're dismantling every single institution, gutting NASA funding, but we're still aiming towards landing on the moon. Like, okay, I guess. And that actually brings us to the stream. All right. Folks, ladies and gentlemen, they, thems of all ages, thank you for joining me on this stream. My name is Samuel Ronan, your next president. And I appreciate your coming out here. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends, family, neighbors, and co-workers. The more we can build this platform, the sooner and faster we can fight back against this administration directly. So today has been Taco Tuesday, or Domestic U.S. Affairs. Tomorrow is going to be Worldwide Wednesdays, where we talk about global affairs. So have a great rest of your night, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Hopefully the world doesn't go to even greater dystopian nightmare levels in that time, but, you know, it is 2026. Have a great night, everybody.